My name is Jennifer Ronner. I'm a sexuality educator and coach. And I teach on a lot of topics. I do a lot of one-on-one teaching, just kind of giving people the basics. I bill it as the sex education that we should have had a long time ago. Sex is shamed in our culture, but also pleasure is shamed, right? We're supposed to be serious. We're supposed to take things seriously, and we're supposed to, get to work and everything be in this nice little tidy box. But doing things like taking a bath, like luxuriating in an hour-long bath, or taking a nap, we shame people for taking this time for themselves, when really the health benefits of experiencing pleasure are numerous, right? Better mood, better outlook, better positive outlook. Um, Masturbation for me is kind of part of a daily practice of that I do, I do like with exercise, right? So exercise is good for you. It works out your body, works out your muscles, keeps you healthy. I see masturbation in the same way. It is flexing those pleasure muscles, so to speak. And the more you do something, the easier it is to find it in your everyday life. It becomes a habit.
Why do you think that our society is so stigmatizing towards us having pleasure? And you made a great point in the beginning of our call, which is that yeah, of course, like we have an issue if you're having sexual pleasure for sure, but we also have an issue with day-to-day pleasure. Like you're napping, why aren't you working the whole time? You know what I mean? Or you're taking a long, luxurious bath. Do you know the water you've used up? There's
There's always a
always
little bit of guilt with anything,
yes,
right?
there's some shame or some guilt that someone is ready to give you for creating a sense of pleasure for yourself. Why is that? Why is that so innate in our society today? And has it always been that way? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I am of the opinion that there's nothing new under the sun, right? We repeat the same patterns. If you study history, it's a predictor of the future, right? Nothing has really changed. The pandemic that we just went through, it was shocking to all of us who lived through it. Worldwide, we experienced trauma and loss over this period of time. The same thing happened in the early 1900s, right? The same thing happened in medieval times. It's just that our experience of it is new to us. But in terms of shame, shame is it's this huge topic, but it's definitely what I think most affects our ability to be fully present and experience pleasure. I tend to think that it has to do with control. And I think that we are both afraid of things that we can't control. Patriarchy is about control. It's about maintaining the status quo. So we shame and repress people so that they don't step out of line, and we can maintain the same social contract that we have for decades, centuries.
It's interesting because I was just thinking, it's interesting how powerful shame and guilt are in controlling us as humans. And to me, the fact that those two emotions can really control humans shows me our innate goodness, because it's like we innately want to be good and we innately want to be accepted. And that's why when we've been convinced that we've done something bad or not good, we feel so bad about it because we want to be good and we want to be part of the community and the group and society. And so I think it's just interesting that the shame and the guilt, which is there to tell you you're bad, if you're experiencing a lot of it, it almost just points to your innocence.
First, I want to say I was flattered to be reached out to for this because this career for me is a midlife career change. I only started, I guess it's going on 8 years now, but starting for me, right about 2015, was realizing that I lived both a private and a public life. And my public life was trying to stay respectable and have a respectable job and be viewed by the people around me as, I mean, yeah, I keep coming back to the word respectable. I sound like a broken record, but it is. It was avoiding judgment. It was avoiding guilt. It was avoiding that shaming. And the private side of me, I was a sexual explorer. That is what I've been drawn to my entire life. But I kept it behind the scenes. I was ashamed to kind of show the world that side of me. And 8 years ago, I was approaching 50 and going, am I going to live the rest of my life like this? Am I going to be afraid to actually be who I am? I felt like, a person divided in half. And what I realized is that I wanted to feel whole and authentic. And I wanted to get up every day and be excited about what I was going to be doing. So I actually played around with a couple of different career choices, but it really all came back to helping people with sexuality and relationships, because that's been my lifelong fascination.
What are your thoughts around camming and this newer form of connecting in the digital age?
I think it's fantastic. And I wish it had been available for me earlier in life. Speaking as someone who remembers a time before the internet, where things were very, very different. Part of my sexual adventuring when I was younger is I have been a sex worker, and first as a phone sex operator, and then as an escort. Right about the time that the internet was becoming a thing that we used on a daily basis. And I'll admit, during the pandemic, I was a phone sex operator and a cam girl myself. So it is so interesting to me because, like I said, this was part of like my private life that nobody knew about when I was younger. And I finally just said, I want to be this whole person. So I've done some exploring in doing cam and doing phone sex. And I had an experience as a cam girl where someone recognized me. I was doing it under a pseudonym. Someone recognized me and they sent me a photo that they had obviously taken of the screen, and had, like kind of written all over it, like pig. They had circled my genitals and put an arrow to it that said disgusting. And this happened just a few years ago because I started during the pandemic. So it was like 2020, 2021. And that stopped me from what I was doing. And it's something that I've thought about a lot because, here I was emerging as a professional in the sexuality field. And then I was confronted by this. I ultimately came to the fact of this is who I am, and I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I do. And I'm certainly not ashamed because I'm a sexual being. I think it is one of the most natural things for human beings to do is to be sexual and experience pleasure for ourselves or with a partner.
You're basically giving real life experience of what I was speaking to, in that the members are shamed, the models are shamed, and there is a lot of stigma thrown their way. Some of them aren't able to share what they really do with their friends and family. Some members have to hide the fact that they're members of sites like Live Jasmine. And like you put it in really great terms where it's like, why should I be ashamed that I'm a sexual being and this is what I like to do? And you're also a professional, like, and so someone was basically trying to tell you that you can't be both.
Right. Right. Which is essentially the message that I received from the culture early on in life, which is why I kept those sides of myself private. The culture is changing, and it's changed very rapidly over just the past few decades, um, where people are waking up and seeing that sex has been used to sell us things. Um, it's pervasive in our culture, but in a nod, nod, wink, wink kind of way. Like, oh, like it's, the naughtiness of it is used to sell us products and sell us ideas. And people are waking up to the fact that it is a perfectly natural, normal human drive to want to experience pleasure and feel connected to other people. So we're seeing a lot more real conversations about sex, which, that's kind of my mission, is to be part of the movement towards making sex and sexuality not so shameful in our society.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, the next question I have for you is if people, which many people don't, have a space where they feel comfortable or safe to explore their sexuality, like with a partner or with Live Jasmine. Although I've interviewed many members, and several of them have told me, sometimes they have a fantasy that's not very common, and so they're actually very afraid to share it with a partner. And they feel safer trying it out with a model to see if they even like it, because it may not be something they want to do, but they have it in them to explore. If we don't have a safe place to explore our sexuality, is there any consequence for that? Or is it okay to just leave that part of our lives untouched?
I mean, I think it's pretty easy to see that when we try to quash parts of ourselves that may not be socially acceptable, right? It leads at least to feeling unfulfilled. One of the things that I've had in my mind because social media treats sexuality as something that you can't talk about, something that is completely taboo. I've often thought about using a platform like Live Jasmine to be able to reach an audience with education. Um, because then I could be free to say words like sex and sexuality and orgasm and vulva and not feel like I'm going to be banned or shadow banned or, it affecting my algorithm or my reach. I actually think that Live Jasmine would be a fantastic tool for online education as well as the other purposes for it, which is connection and sexual interaction. Often you can be your most authentic self with a stranger.
Yeah, totally.
Not afraid of that judgment, and you're not afraid of your friend or your sibling or your parents looking at you and making a judgment about you, right? Stranger interactions can be some of the most positive, affirming interactions that we can have. The root of so many issues with sexuality come from not being able to give voice to your desires, or even before that, not even being able to accept that you have them because of that external shame and judgment, right? But being able to be honest with yourself and then learn to express that will improve your sex life even if there's no change in technique necessarily, right?
How do we create a more sex positive and inclusive society?
I think that it really starts with education. And the the way that we educate around sex in our culture is, I think that's the most shameful thing, honestly. The messages that we get growing up are about all of the bad things that can happen to you if you're sexual or want to be sexual. And then we're expected to find one partner and get married. And then we're magically supposed to know everything there is about sex with that person and making them happy and feeling fulfilled ourselves. But we've been given no information about how to do that. So I really think it starts with promoting not only comprehensive sexuality education, but sexuality education that includes pleasure. Because any of the education that we get in an early age about sexuality talks very little about the experience of pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome. It's been fun.